Hello. It's been a while since I put anything up. Hopefully you checked out the chicken video that I put up. Just something to show a little bit something different. Just kind of been cold and working on cars isn't quite as fun, but we did take on this little job here. Hopefully you can see this yellow one here. Basically went over it, kind of, how can you say it, picked out uh, what we wanted to focus on that was more important because we had a small budget to work with. So, car got new end links, front and rear. We did new control arms in the front, and both wheel bearings were replaced with the hubs. So we pressed all that stuff in, cleaned up all that stuff, and we had some oil leaks that needed addressed. So we did the valve cover gasket wasn't installed right. There wasn't any silicone in the cam cap on the end or in between the seams. So we had replaced that. It had a oil sending unit on the side of the head. That was leaking a little bit. I didn't have a plug to put in there, so we just kind of pulled that out and resealed it. Stuck a new O-ring in the cam sensor. Had to remove the intake. This car was, we'll just say, bumped pretty good in the front at one time, and they did not replace the reservoir on the power steering pump. They kind of like glued it together, so it was leaking. Pulled the oil pan, the lower mounts that came across, the lower engine mount. We cleaned all that stuff up. I have some pictures of that. I'll probably throw them in there. But I did get this thing together, and we decided that we were going to be changing out the transmission fluid just because the current owner didn't know when it was done, and it wasn't something they did. So we just got done doing that. Drain pan's here. We just got done filling it up with some ATF plus 4. So basically, I put everything together, let this thing come up to temp, let it sit for a day or two after everything was cleaned up to try to see if there was anything else that was leaking oil. Lo and behold, we found something. So, along with doing the transmission fluid, we're going to address the other leak that we found. So let's check this thing out. I'll show you everything, and I think I still have some of the parts that we pulled off. So we'll look at them, and I'll show you how bad they were. You'll see it. It has an aftermarket radiator on. So somebody actually got these cheaper fans, and they had stuck them on there at one time. Here's the oil pan gasket. Didn't look too bad, but we replaced it anyway. Intake gasket we just replaced. It's always good to replace it. This one was kind of, I don't know, oil soaked over here toward this side, and it just didn't seem like it was down quite right. You can see here it was kind of catching the threads on this side, and then right over in here it had something going on. So anyway, it's been on for a while. I like to replace them. So if you check this out, you can see the kind of goop that was stuck on here to try to make this thing not leak. All right. We also, it was easier for me because I have them. I had a nice clean kit set off of a car, so we replaced everything here. You can see how damaged the power steering cooler is. This is not an oil cooler. It's for the power steering. So we replaced that. We replaced all the lines. Yeah, you can see it was kind of dirty. We did a tensioner, so I replaced that stuff. Let's go take a look at the other suspension stuff that we replaced. Okay, so the control arms and the wheel bearings I already got rid of. But I'll throw the photo of that. I think I have a photo of that, so I'll throw that in here. If you see it, it is. If not, it's not. So let's get to this car right now. Okay, so we kind of had everything apart. Basically, we cleaned all this down, replaced this stuff. You can see there's some blue sealant tape. It's good for fuel and oil. That's what I prefer to use now. So that's down in there. Some of this other stuff really needs addressed, like the way this fuel line comes across here and the way this oil line's ran, and there's no There's no blanket over that. Like I said, we just kind of address what you're able to. So if you've ever tried to install one of these aftermarket radiators, whether it's a Koyo or the Mishimoto, you're going to find that there's not much room. Now, this has quite a bit of bending in it, which I did push out and try to get that aligned along with the lower part down across here, which was kind of damaged. But I got this to move out. But anytime you install these, there's always a little part on these fans. I like to trim that out so it allows my computer. That was from filling the trans. Basically, I just use a small funnel with a hose. I know it's 2 and basically 3/4 quarts of fluid that needs to go into this. And I always let my pan down there, which you can probably see, just to catch any, so I'm not spilling anything on the floor. So I trim this out, and then right over in here, on this one here, I trimmed out some here. Normally, the intake doesn't hit that lower part right there, but for some reason it was pretty tight on this one. So this had to come off to replace this because we did the pump. I pulled the lines. I just replaced everything with something that I knew was good. So that's pretty much up top. I did have to re-vacuum line some of this. This vacuum tee here was no good. The way they have these vacuum lines run, I mean, I would come out around maybe just to stay away from anything back there. Long-term heat on rubber is bad. But like I said, you know what I mean? We got this fuel line here that needs run the right way. Some of this paint did come off when I washed this in my parts washer, but I wasn't into spending all the time needed to remove all the paint off of that. So we basically just got everything cleaned up, resealed it. You can see we got some fresh black silicone right here. That's dried. Okay. Now, I did pull this pipe off since I had everything out. Cleaned this too. Remounted our computer. We got that straightened out. Now, let's check this out. So, here's the new oil pressure sending unit. Here is the correct tool. Let me see. Does this have a number on it? It's 1 1/16. Warning. Do not use while engine is running. I guess they don't want you to remove it while it's running. Now, the only problem I noticed with this, being this is the correct one, you gotta make sure you don't push this in too far. It's kind of weird that it does that. So you gotta kind of keep it out at the edge. All right, now, underneath the car, we have cleaned up everything. You can kind of tell there's a little bit of like oil spots on them bolts because we didn't clean those. We did clean this motor mount. We got a little bit of anti-seize in here. We didn't go crazy. Like, we weren't pulling everything off of this car, which would be nice how I normally do this. But you can see we had this off, we cleaned this. We had this off, we cleaned that. We did a new seal here on our oil filter housing. Here is our lines. We did replace that. I mean, it has a little bit of surface rust, but for the most part, that is a nice unbent unit with the air deflector still on it. So basically, we put this together, and like I was saying, we came in, we did our transmission fluid. I noticed a little drip here. There was a drip on my pipe. There's a little bit here. And it's really hard to see. There's some coming down onto our return hose, which is just a normal hose. So that should actually be updated, I believe, to one more suitable. I like the one that AGP sells. So let's try to get back here. Try to get to a point where you can see. All right. This oil sending unit, it's really hard to see. Okay, I wish I could have got a picture of this thing to the point where you can see it, but I was able to get up in here and see where it was leaking. I got another one here. I'm going to show you what it looks like. All right, so here is another sensor that we're taking a look at. Now, this is a used one. Sometimes, a lot of the times, these will actually leak and they will come out through here. Now, if you take a look back here, this is actually metal that is bent over top of this plastic to hold it in place. This one here also, for example, if you look down in here, there's oil. The one that's installed on the car is actually leaking around this area right here and running out quite profusely. There wasn't any inside of the plug end, which is quite typical for them. Yeah, that one's pretty clean down in there. But you can see where it's shiny down through there. Not sure if that's an OEM number and a date. It's hard to tell. But this one was just pulled out of a used engine. I was just looking to see if I had another one just to double check. That other engine was quite covered with oil, so I'm sure that's another reason why that one had just as much oil as this one. So I pulled this out just to try to show you. Now, I'm going to get in here. I was trying to get a picture and show you what it looked like before I pulled it out. But like I said, it's a good thing that we did catch this because we're fixing another oil leak. This is what I'm using. I'm going to get up in there. I did pull the charge pipe out of the way. It's down here laying. I had to pull our intake tube off also to be able to get down in there. Hopefully this gives me enough room. I do have another video actually installing one of these. And I think I removed that too. Or maybe I just removed the power steering cooler. It's been a while since I've had to do one of these actually in the car. Most of the time this is something, if I get something like this, everything comes apart. I go over everything, I clean it up, and I reinstall it. And I just address every issue when it's out. It's a whole lot easier. So I'm going to use this setup here and get our old one out, and then we'll get our new one in. Sensor, I got the sensor off. It was actually loose. It looked like it was replaced at one time. I thought maybe it was going to be leaking down around the threads. There is some oil there. If you look, there's a lot around this top side, so it's kind of hard to say. This is the other one that I was showing you, and just from it sitting here, if you look, see the bottom has so much more oil. This thing was wiped clean, and the only place it was down inside where this lip edge is. So I'm not quite sure if this one was doing that, but we do have a new one on there now. I mean, the one that I put on, I don't know if it's a factory one or if this is a factory one. Like I said, I'm not sure. Some of the aftermarket ones look like this, and some of the Mopar ones I think look like this, because I don't see a part number on this one. So this is probably just, it's probably just an aftermarket one, just like the one that I put on. See, this one actually has the numbers on it. So it could be an original one. It could be, I'm not sure. It's been a while since I've seen one. I think I thought I put one. Okay, so that's what the Mopar one looks like, because that was one. That one came from Modern. I don't know if it's because it has a blue seal here, but I did use the same tape. So that's probably the biggest difference that I see. There's no seal. I mean, this one, like I said, this was a really old one. Maybe it's something that's updated. So right now I'm at the point, the transmission's done. Everything's back assembled. I'm going to start this thing up. I'm going to run it for a little bit. Try to take a look up underneath and see if we have any oil coming out. And